Hey everyone, welcome to this super high energy explainer tailored specifically for your Class 10 CBSE English syllabus. Today, we're going to absolutely crush one of the most important chapters in your first flight textbook, A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. Look, if you've ever found English literature just a bit tricky or boring to memorize, don't even worry about it. I am here to break down every single detail, every hidden meaning, and all the potential board questions you need to know. Let's get right into it.
So I want you to imagine, just for a second, losing your entire year's income in literally a matter of minutes because of a freak storm. What would you do? So honestly, think about it. This is exactly what happened to a really hardworking farmer named Lencho. But what he did next to solve his problem, it shocked absolutely everyone.
Okay, let's dive into our game plan for today. We're going to start off with the story background. Then we'll move into the letter and the twist. After that, we'll tackle character analysis and irony, and we'll wrap it all up with some absolutely crucial vocab and board exam revision.
All right, part one, story background.
Now, this chapter is an absolute favorite for board examiners because it deals with some really deep human emotions. Things like hope, extreme faith, and the totally unexpected ways humans react to help. So let's meet our main character, Lencho. The textbook describes him as an ox of a man. He's a farmer who lives in a solitary house, literally the only house in the entire valley, sitting right on the crest of a low hill. And he works like an animal in his fields. वो अपने खेत में एक जानवर की तरह मेहनत करता था. His cornfields are just dotted with flowers, which basically promises a really good harvest. But there is one massive problem. The earth desperately needs a downpour, or at least a shower, because without rain, his family is going to starve. So Lencho just looks up at the sky with this immense, desperate hope. And then, finally, the rain actually comes. Right during dinner, these big drops of rain start falling. The air is fresh and sweet. Lencho is so excited he goes outside just to feel the rain on his body, and he says, "These aren't raindrops falling from the sky. They are new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces, and the little ones are fives." Now, you might be wondering, why on earth does he call the rain coins? Well, it's simple. A good harvest means actual money for his family. बारिश की बूंदें नहीं, उसके लिए पैसे बरस रहे हैं. But then, almost out of nowhere, the whole tone of the story completely shifts. A super strong wind begins to blow, and along with the rain, these really large hailstones start falling. His boys run out to collect what look like frozen pearls, but for Lencho, this is a literal nightmare. For a solid hour, the hail just rains down on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield. The field turns completely white like it's covered in salt. There's not a single leaf left on the trees. Those beautiful new coins turned into a devastating hailstorm. Uski sari mehnat barbad ho gayi. Just imagine his heartbreak, standing right in the middle of his ruined field, knowing for a fact that his family might actually go hungry this year. Let's move to section 2 and see how this builds, the letter and the twist. So, despite this absolute total loss, in the hearts of everyone living in that lonely house, there was really only one single hope left: help from God. Now, Lencho was an uneducated farmer, but he did know how to write. And his faith? It was absolute. He truly believed that God's eyes see everything, even what is deep in a person's conscience. So, the very next Sunday, he writes a literal letter. To who? To God. He writes, "God, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year." And he asks for exactly 100 pesos. Really focus on that number for a second. 100 pesos. A peso is just the currency used in several Latin American countries. He needs this specific amount to sow his field again and survive until the next crop comes in. He actually writes "to God" on the envelope, puts a stamp on it, and just drops it in the mailbox. Over at the post office, a postman finds this letter, laughs his head off, and shows it to his boss, the postmaster. Now, the text describes the postmaster as a fat, amiable fellow. He breaks out laughing too. I mean, come on, who writes a letter to God with a mailing address, right? But then, almost immediately, he turns super serious. He taps the letter on his desk. He realizes the sheer, unimaginable depth of this man's belief.
The postmaster says, "What faith? I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter." So he decides he doesn't want to shake Lencho's faith. He comes up with his crazy idea. He's actually going to answer the letter. But answering it requires a lot more than just goodwill and some ink. It requires 100 pesos. So he asks for money from his employees, he gives a big part of his own salary, and asks friends to contribute for what he calls an act of charity. Kitna shansan tha wo, right? But despite his absolute best efforts, it was just impossible for the postmaster to gather the full 100 pesos. He only manages to collect a little more than half. He gets exactly 70 pesos. So he puts the cash in an envelope addressed to Lencho and signs it with just a single word: God. Now, I want you to build the suspense in your mind for a second. What do you think happened next when Lencho opened the envelope? Did he jump with joy? Did he cry tears of gratitude? Well, the following Sunday, Lencho arrives at the post office a bit earlier than usual. The postmaster is watching him from the back, feeling the quiet contentment of a guy who just performed a really good deed. But when Lencho opens the envelope, he shows not the slightest bit of surprise. "Wase rati parbi herani nahi hui." His confidence is so incredibly strong that he entirely expected the money to be there. But when he actually counts the cash, he gets really angry. He only sees 70 pesos. In his mind, God could not possibly have made a math mistake, nor could he have denied Lencho what he asked for. And here is the massive twist that everyone remembers this chapter for. Lencho storms straight to the window, asks for paper and ink, and furiously writes a second letter to God. He licks a stamp, punches it on, and drops it right back in the box. The postmaster immediately runs over to open it. The letter says, "God, of the money that I asked for, only 70 pesos reach me. Send me the rest. But don't send it to me through the mail because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. Lencho." Wow. Just wow. Chor Hesab. He literally accuses the very people who sacrificed their own hard-earned money to help him of stealing his 30 pesos. I really want you to ask yourself, would you have done the same thing if you had his level of blind faith? All right, let's switch gears to section 3, character analysis and irony. Okay, so putting our teacher hats on for a second, to write really great board exam answers, you have to understand the deeper meanings behind these actions. Think about this comparison. On one hand, we have Lencho's ultimate, unwavering, completely pure faith in God. It's beautiful, but it's also kind of naive, right? On the other hand, we see his complete and utter lack of trust in his fellow human beings. Bhagwan par pura vishwas, par insano par bilkul nahi. You have to contrast this with the postmaster, who perfectly represents human kindness and empathy. The postmaster doesn't even know Lencho, but he parts with his own money just to protect a total stranger's hope. And this brilliantly illustrates our core literary device for this chapter: irony. Please memorize this definition. Irony is an unexpected aspect of a situation that is strange or amusing because it is the exact opposite of what you'd expect to happen. The supreme irony in A Letter to God is that the post office employees who actually collected the money out of pure kindness to save Lencho are labeled as crooks by him. They completely expected gratitude, and instead they were called thieves. Let's bring it home with Section 4, Vocab and Board Exam Revision. Take a deep breath, because this is exactly where we secure your marks. Let's quickly review 3 absolutely critical vocabulary words from this chapter. First up, amiable. This just means friendly and pleasant. Bahut milansar, like the postmaster was an amiable fellow. Second is solitary, meaning done or existing alone. Akela. Remember, Lencho lived in a solitary house. Third is crooks, meaning dishonest people or criminals. Dhokebaz. Lencho famously called the incredibly nice post office workers a bunch of crooks. Drop these exact words into your exam answers and you are definitely going to impress the examiner. Now, if you're working through the thinking about the text questions, these 3 are your absolute top priorities for the boards. Number 1, who does Lencho have complete faith in? Answer, God, and you prove it by citing the fact that he wrote a letter directly to him without a second thought. Number 2, why does the postmaster send the money? Answer, because he is deeply moved by Lencho's unwavering faith and he desperately wants to preserve it. And number 3, what is the irony? Answer, we just covered it. The saviors being accused of being the thieves. All right, time for our 60-second sprint. Let's rapidly recap the entire timeline so it's permanently locked in your memory. Ready? Let's go. Lencho desperately hopes for rain. The rain comes as new coins, but super quickly turns into a devastating hailstorm. His crops are completely ruined. Driven by pure blind faith, he writes a letter to God asking for 100 pesos. The kind, amiable postmaster reads it, decides to help, and collects 70 pesos from his staff. Lencho receives the money, shows zero surprise, but gets furious that it's 30 pesos short. He immediately writes a second letter to God, telling him not to send the remaining money through the mail because the post office staff are a bunch of crooks. Boom, chapter complete. So the crucial takeaway here is that human nature is just wonderfully complex. This story so delicately balances the beauty of pure, innocent faith with the tragedy of human distrust. I want to leave you with this provocative thought. If you were the postmaster, how would you feel reading Lencho's second letter? Would you regret helping him, or would you just kind of smile at his innocence? Really think about it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this explainer. Keep that energy super high and go crush those board exams.